So I had this idea earlier this week during trade deadline craziness and everything. I thought, man, I love talking about hockey, but there's other things that I'd love to discuss. And the idea came up while I'm watching commercials, and I see certain actors, and I'm like, really? He's got another movie. And then there's other ones that I look at and go, wow, okay, so I want to go see that. So I want to talk about 20 actors and actresses that if I see them in a trailer or a commercial, I go, that's a movie I probably want to see, or vice versa. And we'll start with the ones that make me want to watch a movie, and I'll discuss why, because there are reasons. The ones that make me want to watch a movie, let's start off with number 20. Now, Nicolas Cage makes me want to watch a movie because I know it's going to be a lot of overacting. I know there's going to be drama. There's probably going to be screaming. And it may not be a very good movie. Drive Angry is an example. Drive Angry is an awful movie. But Nicolas Cage makes it watchable. So does Amber Heard. Amber Heard's gorgeous. But without Nicolas Cage, there's no way I get through that movie once, much less the two times that I have watched it. It's mindless fun. And Nicolas Cage, in his overacting, is just amazing. Number 19. This doesn't mean that I've seen every movie that certain actors have been in either. It just means I'm more likely to want to watch it. Reese Witherspoon being a good example. Yeah. A number of her movies I probably haven't seen, but when I see her name attached to something, it makes me want to watch it. Like Big Little Lies, it was a very good series, and I watched it because she was in it. So this isn't necessarily just movies either. This is TV shows in some cases, since a lot of Hollywood actors now do TV shows as well. It's not considered as beneath them as it might have been years ago. And Reese is again a good example of that. The woman doesn't age apparently, and everything that she's in, I at least usually find watchable. Except Legally Blonde 2 is absolutely just abysmal, absolutely abysmal. 18. Ever since I saw Emma Stone in Zombieland, I have been a big fan of almost anything she's in. I don't watch all of it. Like for instance, the character she played where she was Hawaiian. I never watched that movie. I don't think anybody did. It was a huge flop, so I don't think anybody watched it. But or she was Samoan or whatever. Um, she's not. She's white and she's a redhead. She couldn't be whiter. Um, Come on, Hollywood, figure it out. Emma Stone though is very watchable. She's entertaining. She's intelligent. Easy A is a good example of a movie that she's in. She's the driving vehicle and she makes it watchable. 17. And this guy would have been a lot higher up 10 years ago. I remember when I saw the movie Fear, and I watched it because I'm like Marky Mark. And that was how I felt. Mark Wahlberg was Marky Mark in the Funky Bunch. So for me, when I saw he was in a movie and he was supposed to be this big badass, I'm like, come on, it's Mark Wahlberg. Like we all know, yeah, he's built, but we all know he's Mark Wahlberg. Kicked ass. The movie Fear is actually a pretty good movie, and it's genuinely terrifying in spots, and he's fantastic in it. So I came out of Fear going, okay, I was 100% wrong. Now, some of his recent movies are just pure crap. And that's why he's lower on this list than he would have been right around say when The Departed came out. His character in The Departed is what I want to be all the time, although I would never be able to keep a job, much less a channel if I was like him all the time. Not that he'd care. He's delightful in that movie, and he's kind of fantastic. So yeah, he gets 17 based on the fact that he's been in some really bad movies lately. 16. Looking at you, Transformers movies. Thanks for ruining Mark Wahlberg. Matt Damon. Matt Damon is much the same. He has some bad movies, and sometimes his characters are a hit and a miss. A miss for me is his character in Interstellar. Still baffled by decisions made by his character in Interstellar. I'm baffled by a lot of things that happen in a lot of movies. Matt Damon is one of those guys who's always sort of Matt Damon, and yet talented Mr. Ripley is an example of how he can um, play a character that you're guessing about until the very end. And I enjoy his work. And it started out with um, Good Will Hunting, and I enjoy him in Dogma. Dogma, I thought he was fantastic. Him and Ben Affleck both. Ben Affleck's not on this list, but I couldn't figure out whether he's a I want to see or I don't want to see. I can't figure out with Ben Affleck. It depends on the role, so I couldn't put him on either list. But Matt Damon is sort of fantastic. 15. Another M. Mila Kunis. So I used to watch that 70s show specifically for Jackie. There wasn't another reason to watch it. And there wasn't. It was funny for a while. Red was always funny, but it got kind of boring in parts, and then Dumbass left, and then it just lost something, and then Dumbass was going to be in Spider-Man 3, and I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man 3 soon, because wow, he's Venom, really. Anyways, Mila Kunis, seeing her name on something and just she's so gorgeous. She's also a very good actress. She's underrated as an actress, and I think what won me over with her was when she was on stage and a question was asked of a co-star where they were kind of insulting her co-star, and she answered them in Russian. She answered in Russian, which I thought was like, I pretty much melted on the spot. Must have watched that interview 100 times because I was like, wow, she speaks Russian. This is fantastic. Um, and like I said, she's a decent actress. Her character as a girlfriend in Ted makes it awesome, and then Ted 2 is awful. I don't get it. I have a disappointing movies list coming up soon. I've got it written down here. Ted 2 isn't on it because I had low expectations. I was like, really, you made a second? Why'd you make a second? But Mila Kunis was smart enough to duck her way out of things. Bad Moms is a good example of a movie that I watched because she's in it. Because I'm like, oh, Mila Kunis, and done. 14. I'm going to have to explain this one a little bit. Alice Eve is the blonde in She's Out of Your League. She is the blonde British doctor in Star Trek Into Darkness. And if I see her name attached to a project, I will want to watch it. Um, and she's a half decent actress. Being honest here, she does some good work. There's I want to say crossing over. There's a movie where it's about immigration into the states and some of the dirty under seedy stuff about it. If you want to see Oliver, that's the movie to see her in. But she has a questionable relationship with Ray Liotta in that movie. But it's a good movie, and she does some very good work. But let's be honest, she's gorgeous, and she's got. I'm trying to think of the name of the condition. One of her eyes are blue and one of her eyes are green, and she usually wears a contact to turn them both blue or both of them green. In Star Trek Into Darkness, I'm pretty sure she didn't. I'm pretty sure if you look closely, you'll see one blue eye and one green eye, and I think that's kind of that's unique. Number 13. And this is a guy who needs to be in more movies, really honestly. John Malkovich. Extremely well spoken, and while I am sick to death of Man in the Iron Mask, I once loved that movie, and it was because of him. His character, his speaking. In Con Air, he's fantastic. And the movie, being John Malkovich, he's fantastic. He has this air about him. He can play a wonderful, caring, tender character or a heartless, horrible, ruthless villain. And he could almost do it in the same paragraph and you'd believe both. He is a master of his craft and he makes everything worth watching. Sort of like Jack Nicholson did at one point in his career and then kind of got off the rails for him, so you're not going to see him on this list either, but that's too bad because, again, The Departed, right? The Departed had so many actors in it that are just great, and then, yeah, even Matt Damon. Like, there's other characters on this list from that movie. Anyways, let's just get off that topic and move on to number 12. Um, from the moment that I first saw Morgan Freeman on in a movie, and I want to say Driving Miss Daisy, um, I've really enjoyed his work, and of course his voice is very reassuring. It's very calming. He seems like a very genuine, very good man. Um, he's a host of a show, a science show. I'm trying to think of it now. Um, and I hadn't even thought of looking into that when I did this list. Um, yeah, it looks into quantum gravity, and I know all the science, time travel, and things, and can you do time travel? Um, It is fantastic, and I think there's like 5 or 6 seasons of it. And I'm going to be kicking myself for forgetting. But Morgan Freeman is the ultimate host of a TV show, and he showed that in March of the Penguins, of course, which is a great movie in and of itself, but more documentary than movie, so it didn't belong in my top 200 list. Morgan Freeman is just awesome. I could listen to the man talk for hours. He could read the ingredients of a can of soup, and it would be fascinating. Um, he's one of a kind. Number 11. Speaking of one of a kind, and my crush on this actress goes back beyond the obvious. The obvious would be Titanic. Uh, it's not Titanic. To me, it goes back to Heavenly Creatures. Heavenly Creatures was a disturbing movie, which is now 25 years old. I saw an interview with Kate Winslet like a week ago, and she talked about I was 25 years old and how old do I feel. And I thought, holy crap, how old do I feel? Um, she's still lovely. She again, she much like John Malkovich down here, she can play a very wonderful damsel in distress type like she did in Titanic. Horrible script, not a great movie. She did as well as she could with a crappy script. Um, but she can play evil too. She can absolutely. You look at Heavenly Creatures, and The Reader. The Reader is a movie that kind of made me ill, and I was physically repulsed by her in The Reader, which shows how well she played and got into that role, and how much she made herself as unattractive as possible in that movie. And it showed me once again that Kate Winslet is she is one of the greats of her generation, and she just hasn't had the Meryl Streep roles. Not that there's a ton of great roles for women in movies even now, but Kate Winslet usually hits it out of the park. There's another movie that's coming out in the theater now. They showed like a part of a scene of it on Colbert when she was on there, and I'm like, okay, I got to see that. And a lot of her movies are ones I don't necessarily go out to the theater to see. They're kind of artsy fartsy, but you know, she's in Sense and Sensibility. She's the only reason that I even sat through that pretty monotonous movie. And then Pride and Prejudice is the exact same movie. I'm sorry, it's the same movie. It's so lazy. They're the same movie. It's just you got one girl in one and two girls in the other, so they're a completely new movie. Same story. Number 10. If you told 80s me that I was writing this name down, I would have said you need to get your head read. Leonardo DiCaprio started out as a pretty boy kid star and couldn't stand him. I absolutely couldn't stand Leonardo DiCaprio at all. I thought he looked like a smarmy, smartass, arrogant little kid. And you know what? He probably was. He probably still is. Reports on Leonardo DiCaprio are that he's not a great guy when he's not on the set. But you know what? That's not what this is about. This is about when he's in a movie, do I want to watch it? And absolutely. And I've mentioned that Leonardo DiCaprio does a lot of screaming. I've mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio's characters tend to be kind of two-dimensional rather than three. But still, he's just fantastic. Um, he makes you watch Man in the Iron Mask, as a for instance. Departed, as a for instance. Yeah, The Departed had quite the hell of a cast. Martin Scorsese basically just goes, here's a script, and all the best actors in Hollywood dive at it, including Joe Pesci, who's not on this list, only because I haven't seen a new movie of his in a long time. So I can't put Joe Pesci on this list. But DiCaprio is just, he's awesome. I'm not talking about him personally. He may be a dirtbag, but in movies he's great. Number 9. And I was surprised she ended up this high up, but honestly, I am usually entertained by Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore, I think my favorite movie with her in it is Wedding Singer, but she can play dramatic. She can play dramatic. And Santa Clara Diet, I'm going to watch. That's on my to watch list. The tricky part is that because she's a zombie eating people, the amount of blood that's going to end up in it means that I have to watch that alone. But it looks very funny, and it's something that I'm looking forward to consuming only because she's in it. And it's one of those kind of shows that I probably wouldn't want to watch if it wasn't for who's in it. But and Timothy Oliphant's in that as well. Oliphant doesn't make this list, but I'm going to go ahead and put 21 because he as well. If he's in something, I'm probably going to enjoy it. And I think of Perfect Getaway as an example. So there we go, 21. Timothy Oliphant. So Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant means I'm going to want to watch that. Number 8. This one surprises me too because I really thought he was just a pretty boy, and remember when he came over with his brother, and I'm like, oh, really? Um, yeah, you're spelling that wrong, Shannon. Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth, I think, started winning me over with his quick role at the start of the Star Trek movie where he's James Kirk's father, sacrificing himself so people can live. It's a small little part, but I enjoy it. And then there's Perfect Getaway. I enjoy him in Thor. I thought he was perfect in Thor. Like when he smashes the beer glass and he's like, that was tremendous, and smashes the beer glass and he's like, need another, and just the way he buys into this role, so you buy it as well. When people take on a role that's kind of ridiculous and yet you buy the premise because of how they buy into it, that's some good acting. So Chris Hemsworth's really won me over. Liam Hemsworth isn't on this list because to me Chris is the better actor. Number 7. This should kind of be not a surprise for anybody who's paid attention to me for more than 10 minutes on this channel. I don't think there's a question in my mind that she's the most beautiful woman in Hollywood, and that's Scarlett Johansson. But my appreciation of Scarlett Johansson's abilities goes back to Ghost World, when she was a teenager, and there was none of that. I mean, I thought, wow, she's gonna be really pretty when she's a grown up, but holy crap, that caught me off guard. I love the movie The Island, mostly because of her. Avengers is fantastic in parts, mostly because of her. But she also takes some artsy fartsy roles. Um, she she's not scared of taking roles that other actresses may not take. And of course, there are some artsy fartsy roles people are thinking of right now that she's probably taken. Under the Skin being the obvious example. I haven't been able to watch that movie all the way through, but she's very out in that movie. She's yeah. Um, so while it's not, I wouldn't say it's tremendous viewing. It's a great movie. She committed to that movie. She absolutely did. So if yeah, and after watching the parts of that movie I've seen, which is probably about 2/3 of it, I just couldn't get all the way through it. After about 2/3 of it, I was like, yeah. So she is the most beautiful woman in Hollywood. I now visually can look and go, yep, that's yes. But number 6 is close, and I really wouldn't want to um, have to pick between the two, and that's Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence also is a fantastic actress, and she does take roles that are meant for pretty girls, and I think of X-Men First Class, but she does take some really solid roles. Mother may be this weird kind of dumb movie, and yet Jennifer Lawrence, you buy in the role. She's from the scenes that I've seen of it, and I haven't watched the whole movie. Eventually, I will. Just because I have a negative impression of a movie before I've seen it doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it. That's not going to work. And Jennifer Lawrence means I will watch the movie at some point. She's usually very believable in whatever she's in, and she's a very good actress. It really is. The only reason I sat and watched Passengers is because she was in it. I'm like, Jennifer Lawrence is in this. I'll sit and watch it. Number 5, and this actress took a lot of daring roles as a kid, and I like it when a child star takes daring roles as a kid, and that's Chloe Moretz. And the daring roles for me are Let Me In, Kick Ass, two very solid examples where she's either in something that's a horror movie like Let Me In, or she's doing a whole lot of swearing in Kick Ass. And yet she's a very good actress. She's the only reason I watched Neighbors 2, because Neighbors 2 just looked terrible, and it was. But I watched it because I'm like, Chloe Moretz is in it, I'll sit and watch it. I watched Dark Shadows in part because she was in it, and in part because I liked the Dark Shadows series back in the 80s. I'm that old. And I had watched the 70s series as well with my mother. They repeated it on TV. I'm trying to remember when, but I watched some of the old series. And basically, Dark Shadows was a soap opera about vampires. And it was kind of a fun show. And Chloe Moretz makes everything better. She really does. She's kind of fantastic. Number four. I always liked number four. Krysten Ritter used to always play the friend. Krysten Ritter played the bitchy friend. Krysten Ritter played the sarcastic character that you'd see for about 5 minutes in a movie, and I always thought, if she was a blonde, she'd be the main star. If she wasn't a skinny brunette, and if she had a larger chest, she'd be a main star. And I use She's Out of Your League with Alice Eve as a good example of that. She's the best friend. She's the consolation prize in terms of, okay, well, I'm going out on a double date, so you're going to have to go with this one. And the guy's like, oh, I got to go with her. And it's like, are you serious? It's Krysten Ritter. You go, thank you very much, and you shut your mouth. I've always thought Krysten Ritter had this fantastic ability and range. And now with Jessica Jones, it's like people went, oh, wow, amazing. Jessica Jones is a really good actress. Yeah, welcome to the conversation. Um, Krysten Ritter as Jessica Jones is fantastic. And really, it feels to me like she's playing a similar character to some of those sarcastic ones she played before, but definitely amped up and more range, and she's awesome. And she takes when Netflix did the Marvel B universe, so not the A characters, they're gonna take the B characters and see what they can do, like Daredevil. She took an unknown character in Jessica Jones and made her three-dimensional and fantastic. She made that her role. I can't imagine anybody else being her. So that's an amazing job by her. Number three. I hadn't heard of Chris Pine before they cast him as James Kirk in Star Trek, and I remember going, "Who? Really? He's going to be James Kirk?" Yeah, he owned it. Absolutely owned it. And every movie he's done from then until the recent Wonder Woman movie, I find him intelligent, funny. Does he always play the same character? Probably. And that's not that unusual in Hollywood. Some of my 20 actors that I don't like, it's partly because they play that same annoying character all the time. Um, but Chris Pine is a good actor. He does have definitely the acting chops. There are some pretty boys in Hollywood that once they're done with whatever franchise they're in, whatever trilogy you want to name, whether it's Twilight or Star Wars prequels or any of those kinds of things, that once that's done, their career is basically over because they don't have that range. They don't have that ability to to find those really solid roles where they just act. There's no special effects. There's no explosions. And with Jennifer Lawrence, another example of something I watched for her would be the Hunger Games movies, and bringing roles like that to life and making it work is difficult, and you can get a star vehicle to work and just have some guy standing there acting all wooden, and still make hundreds of millions of dollars, but that actor probably won't have a long career after because they don't have that range. Number two. She's not in a lot of movies. She's in New Girl. New Girl, I loved New Girl the first 3 years. And then the character started doing things that didn't make any sense to the character just to prolong the series. And I was like, wow. So I was done. But Zoe is so watchable. And it started with Elf. And the funny thing is, I I don't know. She just looked like just another character to me. Just another actress, whatever. But then I saw her in Elf, and I was like, wow, she can sing. Like, you can tell when an actress is singing, but they're lip syncing, and it's a studio, and she can sing. So I started paying attention to that, and then I watched the movie Failure to Launch. Failure to Launch is basically hot garbage, starring Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson. But her secondary character, is funny, and yet the weird part is they portray her as this weird lonely virgin girl, and I'm like, no, no, no. And if the movie had been about her character, and if you just threw away the entire premise of Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey's characters, you'd have a good movie. Zoe is fantastic in that movie. And again, and it's sort of like what I talked about with Thor when I did my favorite movies. You're kind of distracted by the fact that Thor wouldn't want Natalie Portman; he'd want Kat Dennings. So with Failure to Launch, just like Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson's character is so two dimensional, and so basically almost one dimensional, really. And yet Zoe's is more fun and quirky and different, and as a man, I can tell you'll go for those quirky different ones a lot, because the stereotypical girls may not interest you as much. And so Zoe was always getting cast in that. And then it changed with Yes Man. Yes Man, she's cast with Jim Carrey, who's much older than she is. But it still worked because it's Jim Carrey. Somehow it worked. And that movie showed just how irresistible she can be. The quirky can be irresistible. Number one. And number one is one that, again, if you took me back 25 years and said, Shannon, when Brad Pitt's in a movie, you're going to want to watch it. Shannon 25 years ago would have said, yeah, no. Because of Legends of the Fall. Legends of the Fall is mostly just touchy-feely crap. The best part of Legends of the Fall is towards the end of the movie when everybody dies. That's when it gets interesting. Sort of like Last of the Mohicans that way. Last of the Mohicans I can pretty much sleep through. And then the last 15 minutes I'm with it. It's got the music, it's got the violence, it's got everybody's life is on the line, and you don't know who's going to pull through and who's going to make it and who isn't. And that's fantastic. And if the entire movie of Last of the Mohicans was like that, I would watch it all the time, especially for the music. The music from Last of the Mohicans is awesome. Brad Pitt won me over with Fight Club. He won most males over with Fight Club. And then, it continued and continued and continued. And I think of Seven, which is a great movie. Didn't make my top 200. Great movie. And Inglourious Bastards was the most recent one that I've seen that just, it's so perfectly Brad Pitt. And I watched World War Z because he was in it. I wouldn't have watched it if he wasn't in it. It's so perfectly Brad Pitt. The other movie of his that I thought was terrible was Interview with a Vampire. I know there's people who like that movie, but I really can't stand it. I have a tremendous dislike for Tom Cruise, and because of Interview with the Vampire and Legends of the Fall at the time, I just thought Brad Pitt was just a pretty boy. There wasn't a whole lot to him in terms of acting, and I wasn't sold on him. Now I am. Fight Club showed he was willing to get gritty. He could do a gritty character, and he is, to me, the most watchable Hollywood actor there is. So there you go. Not as many females as some may have expected on this list. Some being probably my lovely wife. But, I will watch a movie because of which dude's in it too. It does happen. The only reason Jensen Ackles isn't on this list from Supernatural is because other than My Bloody Valentine 3D, which is a fun 3D horror movie, I can't really think of anything he's done. So, yeah, this is my list. Let me know your list. And again, I've got a list of 20 actors that make me not want to watch a movie, which will be divisive, I'm sure. But these are the 20 that make me want to watch a movie. Let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I'll talk to you again soon.